Good afternoon, and thank you very much for giving up your time to listen to a ginger Scotsman. I'm going to tell you a story of CivTech, and it comes from two backgrounds. One is as a former business owner who used to build super shiny web apps for Google, PayPal, Sony Ericsson, McDonald's. And the other was then as moving back up to Scotland to run tech procurements. So it's these two experiences that I'll share with you now. First of all, in the audience, who is public sector? Okay. And who is private sector? Okay, good. Third sector? Excellent. And academia? A lot. Good. It's always good to see who's in the audience in that mix. So I set up the CivTech Programme nearly 3 years ago, and I'm going to plant a seed with you. And that seed is increments of trust. Seed planted. So we are part of the digital directorate of the Scottish Government, and our mission is about driving daring and innovation in the public sector by collaboratively solving challenges that make people's lives better. So who here has got innovation somewhere in their title or their remit? Yeah? I find that's the less of the interesting bit. I'm more interested in the daring, because that's what we need from our public servants now. So we're here to do two things. One is, can you deliver better public services and provide economic development opportunities? And do that through the prism of open innovation, where it's openly collaborating. Who here runs procurements or has been involved in procurements? Okay, a few people. So for those public sector people who know this scenario, and this also applies to large corporates, we have a scenario where specs take a year to write, 6 months to procure, 12 months to roll out, that we write a spec for this, and if we had spoken to some users, you'd know they want this, and in the end, we often get this. So this is a scenario that is common, as I say, in public sector and large corporates as much as public sector. So take technology, sensor technology. So to Scotland, this is worth nearly 3 billion euros a year. And we have going from subsea through to urban environment, smart city IoT. But it presents us with a problem. Because where technology moves so quickly, how can we procure what we don't know exists? So it's moving from a place where, as governments, as public sector, we write specs with great detail, to a different place. Because the world has moved on. And that, for many public servants, is quite tricky. So what we proposed was that let's take a whole bunch of public sector challenges, and we have challenge sponsors to support them. So that might be in health, environment, cyber, transport, whatever, across the public domain. And that we have some entrepreneurial entities and startup that work with us. And the challenge sponsors give challenges, opportunity, money and resources, and feed that through to entrepreneurial entities in terms of opportunity and access, training, and money and experience. And in turn, through a process, we would get some minimum viable products, awareness and exposure to an entrepreneurial mindset, which we as the CivTech Programme facilitating would hand on to the challenge sponsors to provide solutions, but also that entrepreneurial experience. But there's a problem, because there's procurement laws. And you have laws, and you have rules, and you have guidance. And often, actually, the case is that the legislation, the laws are quite flexible, but the rules are inflexible, and the guidance bears no resemblance to the legislation. So these are the sort of the challenges that you can come across when you're setting up new innovation programs. And it's great spending time with Justyna Orlowska and the GovTech team as we discuss these when you're setting out, as they set out on their journey. So the lesson that we have, first of all, is show me the law, not the rule. So how CivTech works is we take a whole bunch of challenges, put them out to the ecosystem, run a selection process whereby we take 3 companies forward, pay them essentially to pitch, and we give them £3,000, so €3,500, and then go on to take 1 company forward, pay them up to €23,000 as a contract. And into that, we have challenge sponsors, citizens, and an accelerator program comprising 40 workshops of product, business, and personal development. But that's all very well, because often in innovation programs, what happens after the shiny thing has been delivered? Well, actually, it's really important that you have those ongoing contracts, the ability to actually give startups and SMEs with nascent and valuable technology a springboard for their innovation. And that springboard as a reference client, as government, takes them to a global stage. So it's about building in increments of trust. It's not committing yourselves to this, it's committing yourselves to that. Seeing how it goes, building a bit more. Who here delivers software in agile methodologies? Yeah. So it's exactly that. It's building it. But this is also about how you then run the procurements. A little bit more, a little bit more. And innovation does not require a lot of money. These sums are not huge when you compare yourselves to conventional procurements. And fundamentally, this is people putting people at ease with the F word, failure. Because when you do anything innovative, failure will happen, and that is a good thing. The point to manage is the scale of that failure. So better for things not to work when they're small, when you've then committed further down the line. So, some examples. We work with organizations across the public sector landscape, health, cyber, environment. And an example, our SEPA, our environment agency, had an issue with flood warning capability. These systems are expensive, and the communities that most need them are the ones actually where it's disproportionately expensive to put them in there. So Gary applied and took a car bumper sensor, which measure distance that way, turned it 90 degrees, wrapped it in a 3D printed case with a LoRa network, put an LED display as the receiver, and this is now being rolled out in communities across Scotland for a fraction of the price of conventional flood warning systems. It seems simple, but that's often the case with innovation. We had a problem around our road maintenance, and we had a digital agency come in and say, what if we spent £3,000 buying a Relo Laguna, strapping an iPhone to the dashboard, using the accelerometer data to measure the potholes in the roads. And if anyone's been to Edinburgh in Scotland, you'll know that there are a lot of them. And they've now gone on to build a company employing data scientists with a proper capability for rolling this out across local and government authorities. Well, think how much we spend on health. Well, those big systems we deploy. Maybe there's another way. Maybe actually if we opened ourselves up to innovators, you could deploy systems at a fraction of the cost, as we are with one of our outpatients programs. Or indeed with one of our local authorities, where they have an issue around aggregation of data, pulling it all together, and delivering a system that has produced a very nice case study for Stirling Council. So those are just 4 out of the 18 examples I've got, and then currently we've launched another 10 last week. But it answers the question, how could we have procured what we didn't know existed? And it's fundamental. It's about starting with the problem, not the solution. And the reason that we have health, cyber, environment, transport, there's this whole cross-pollination. So when we take the companies in, we house them in 3,000 square feet in Edinburgh. And we're interested in that cross-pollination of skills and tech and expertise, but not just amongst the companies. This is also about the cross-pollination amongst the challenge sponsors, which led us to develop our Leaders Entrepreneurship Program, Entrepreneurship Leaders Program, where we took the workshops for the startups and the businesses, 40 of them, and we said 24 of these are as applicable to the public sector as they are the private sector. So not only could we upskill our civil servants, but actually, how do we change the mindsets of them? Not a training course of 1 week, but a 9-month immersive experience. And the lesson here is about collaboration and collaborating with everyone. So as Justyna and the team talk about how they're going to develop the GovTech program in Poland over the next few months, it will be about collaboration, building these programs with public sector, private sector, third sector, academia, investor groups, citizen groups. So the impact. It's all very nice being described these by external agencies, including governments or other governments. But actually what really counts is how the public sector is changed, and whether their brains are rewired, whether they go on to run procurements differently, or whether indeed they go on to save nearly 2 million euros in cost avoidance. And from the company perspective, the whole premise was, could we use our purchasing power to springboard companies? And they've gone on to win over £1 million worth in contracts within the first year, create jobs, savings, raise investment. So our hypothesis around that was absolutely borne out. This is from our Cabinet Secretary for Finance of the Constitution, so similar to the minister that we'll have a panel with very shortly. But it's really about disruption and changing mindsets. And so they see absolute value in this setting example for how other programs are run within the government. And it's about moving from that sandbox of innovation, which sort of sits over here somewhere because people don't really want to change the way they do stuff over here, to widespread adoption. And that's key. And it's not just in product, but in process as well. So what we learn on a small scale, we can then cascade up to larger procurements. In this case, why shouldn't we work with 3 companies first before we then contract the single one, as opposed to committing to one right up front? So it's about increments of trust, but also confidence. Because what value a public sector that has the confidence to do things differently, to innovate, to be disrupted, and itself be the springboard for disruption? That's a very powerful story. And in this world where technology moves so fast that we don't know, we can't procure what we don't know exists, we do need different approaches. And if you have the confidence to do it, that means fundamentally us as citizens benefit. So my final lesson is, don't wait until everything is in place, those who are involved in innovation programs. You just start today, do something. Again, the chats with the GovTech team here is really encouraging, absolutely on the right path. Doing something. So finally, an invitation. Who here has not been to Edinburgh or Scotland? Okay. So there are direct flights, Ryanair, it's 9:55 tonight, EasyJet if you prefer them. But come and have a look. Come and visit us. We know that you have a really great startup community here. So let's collaborate. Thanks very much.